You're now listening to the Pitchside Peregrines podcast, your home for all things Athletic Club Boise.
All right, everybody. Before we get into today's episode, quick shout out to KJO Insurance, the first sponsor of the Pitchside Peregrines podcast. Look, insurance premiums suck, but your coverage doesn't have to. They know Idaho and the Pacific Northwest, and they'll actually find you a deal that makes sense. DM them on Instagram at KJO Insurance with Pitchside, or call 208-883-4800 and tell them Kyle and Elias sent you. All right, let's talk some AC Boise.
All right, everyone, welcome into a special collaboration between two USL media outlets, podcasts, whatever you want to call them. I am Elias with the Pitchside Peregrines, and I have David with This is Paradise. And today, since this is the second meeting of AC Boise and the Sarasota Paradise, we thought it would be fun to kind of come back and collaborate in a episode, talk about how the clubs are doing so far in their USL campaigns, talk about maybe the first game and the clash that was the inaugural kickoff for both teams' USL 1 season, maybe how the starting lineups have changed, so on and so forth, in preparation for Wednesday's clash between the two teams. So, David, welcome to at least my podcast.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's good to be on.
Sweet. Well, we can dive right into it. Obviously, Boise is doing slightly better, I guess, far better, however you want to paint the picture.
Yeah, just a little bit,
So far in this USL season, currently sitting in fourth at the time of recording. We are recording prior to the weekend's matches, just for scheduling sake, sitting at 14 points with 8 games played. The Paradise so far not having the greatest season, 10 games played with 7 points, but you know, there's always the second half. There's plenty of time left to play in this season. So I guess, David, what has been Sarasota's problem, if you want to call it a problem, so far in this season?
Yeah, I think it's probably a couple episodes ago. I titled that episode. Oh gosh, what was it? Be Chicken Little or embrace the expansion narrative. And the whole Chicken Little, people, I guess it's an old story. If people aren't familiar with Chicken Little, right, it was skies falling, skies falling. And I think everyone's very much familiar with the expansion cycle that usually happens. Most teams are not successful coming out of the gates. What we've probably had, the Golden Knights were very good in their expansion year. If you go to MLS, Atlanta United was excellent their expansion year. But otherwise, it's generally, expansion teams kind of fizzle out and never really amount to a whole lot of anything the first couple of seasons. So, I think for me, kind of looking at how the seasons progress over these 10 matches, it really feels like it's that expansion narrative. I think there's a lot of just we got the unlucky draw with being the prototypical expansion team where we just kind of have some chemistry issues, maybe some communication issues, just getting familiar with teammates, technical staff, all that. So I think it is. I think it's that because, there's a lot of positives that can be drawn from the 10 games, even Sporting Jacks last midweek, we lost 2-0 and I thought we played a very good game. So it's just these things where I don't think the pieces are quite there or the pieces aren't quite put together. So yeah, I think that's what it is.
Yeah, it definitely shows the parity in what expansion team success can look like. I think we recently talked with the Fort Wayne Footy Pod about Fort Wayne's success or maybe home success, but overall struggles at times, and how roster makeup is just so different from team to team, especially on expansion sides where Athletic Club Boise wasn't a USL 2 side before making this transition to professional football. They were just nothing. They didn't exist prior to this, while a Sarasota or Fort Wayne were prior semi-pro teams that had an ownership group that was previously with the team when they were semi-pro, or the same coach, or whatever that looks like for a multitude of reasons. Um, I can't really put a nail as to why some expansion teams like a Spokane are super successful. It just seems that maybe the sides that are completely new have more buzz around them, ownership, who knows? One thing I also noticed is there's a lot of teams in that Florida bubble for USL one
Mm-hmm.
and USL Championship, so it's a very competitive market to get talent where you have the Rowdies, you have Miami FC, you have FC Naples, you have Sarasota, just to name I guess the big four off the top of my head in the Miami or Florida market that someone can't, not all four teams can find the best local talent or the best
Right.
overall talent and be successful.
Yep.
Um,
I agree. And yeah, in fact, next year will be even crazier because Fort Lauderdale will be in the USL
mm,
one, and then Sporting Jacksonville is up in Jacksonville in championship. So yeah, I think that's a good point. I think there's a lot of competition there, and if they're good enough to make championship, well, why wouldn't they try to do championship as opposed to come to a Naples or a Sarasota? So yeah, I agree. There's probably some of that there.
yeah, it's just the more I dive into every separate team in the USL landscape, it's just interesting to see the number of players on the roster. And so far, Sarasota's been the largest group at 32 total players signed or under contract in some way. The average age is around Athletic Club Boise's at 24 and a half. I think Boise's at 26, while a Fort Wayne is in the early 20s. They're more building around those collegiate fresh out of college players and not more veteran
Right.
USL players. But it's just interesting to see, I guess, with that 32 player roster, is there a lot of um, cycling between players in your starting 11, or is it a pretty set group when it comes to your starting group?
So I would say that there's a pretty set, oh gosh, roughly eight are pretty much there, and there's maybe seven, and there's that 3 to 4 that cycle in and out. We've had some injury issues as well, where we've had some cycle in there. We've also had a very heavy start to the season, which has driven us crazy. The fact that we're at 10 matches, and there are some teams that are at 5. So we've had to deal with a lot of rotation anyway because we're playing midweek games, and then we've got the USL Cup as well. So I think, generally speaking, though, it's about 7 or 8 are our core. Uh, Alex Sutton in goal. He has started every league match. Um, let's see, Declan Waters, center back, our captain, main captain, I would say. He had his first league match break this last weekend. He had started the first 9 matches plus Tampa and plus Sporting Jacks in the USL Cup. So, there are some players that have played a lot. In fact, I think Jonathan Bolaños, he might be sitting around 8, 9 starts even. So it's, I would say 7, 8 core players. We have the midfield is generally where you see the rotation. Um, I think we might start seeing more rotation up at forward. Honestly, Garrett McLaughlin, I don't think has played up to his potential.
Mm-hmm.
And knowing what his potential has been in the past, I don't think he has. And I think Mika is trying to play around a little bit with that position. I think the negative with that is, if you get too much heavy rotation in that midfield, especially, they're kind of the group that really makes the engine run, right? And so I feel like that could be causing some issues in our communication and chemistry.
Mm.
But I get it, because if they're not performing, you know,
Something's
you
got to
you want to
change.
try something else, right? So yeah, I think, yeah, I think so.
Yeah, it's always interesting again to see how, I mean, for AC Boise, it's pretty much the everyone but maybe the front two. So again, maybe nine players are pretty solid and start week in, week out, barring injury or barring um, any setbacks. Just looking at the starting lineup from the match in March between the two teams, I think the major changes for AC Boise are we have a different goalie. Joseph Endema during that game probably had his best start ever in Athletic Club Boise colors. Uh, Set him up for amazing potential. Unfortunately, moving forward, had some own goals and kind of just blunders in goal that led to him seeing the bench. So we now have Jonathan Klewer, who is less crafty, let's call it, less Manuel Neuer type, playing the ball out and wanting to be more of a facilitator and more of a traditional big 6'4" goalie
Mm.
that will stop shots but not be anything more than doing his job and making sure the ball doesn't hit the back of the net. The major defensive change, as we'd had the same back three for every game this season, is Jake Dengler is injured in some capacity. We haven't gotten official reports from the team to understand how severe it is. He was in a sling and it's some kind of upper body, arm, shoulder, whatever injury. So he was not playing in our league match or cup match against Monterey Bay, and you could tell the defense was definitely confused without him, as he was kind of the core of that back three group. So really interested to see come the Sarasota match if they've got their crap together and have a better understanding of who's going to play where, whose responsibilities what. As on Saturday's game against Monterey Bay, it definitely seemed at times assignments were not understood without Jake Dengler being there.
Yeah, I would think looking at the roster, the 11 from our first matchup, it, I mean, there's a, I would say a 70% chance that it's almost identical because honestly, this group has pretty much come out. Yeah, I mean, looking at the one Callum Stretch defender, I feel like he might be injured. Um, and then there'd be questions with Chandler O'Dwyer. Um, Jordan Bender has come on recently in the last few matches and really made I think, a positive impact. So I could see him in midfield instead. Um, but Matt Sensi's been very good. Uh, Ethan is honestly maybe one of our best midfielders. I can't imagine Jonathan not being a starter here,
Mm.
and I'd expect it to be Garrett. So yeah, I mean honestly, that lineup is pretty close. Anderson Rosa, another defender, has been fantastic. In fact, he's got I think 3 goals on the season now.
Wow.
Um, and so this is a pretty good look at what you might be seeing from us.
Yeah, and I would agree with that sentiment. Besides Jake Dengler, um, maybe a little bit of shifting with that, but Toomey, if healthy, has been playing every game possible. Philip Mayaka has been playing every game possible. Nick Moon and Blake on the wings for the left and right wing back have been playing consistently. We too kind of have a striker, I guess. No, none of our starting strikers have made a case for themselves to start every game. So Luan Brito, who was, I guess, in the preseason supposed to be this Brazilian freak coming to us from Fluminense, hasn't, I guess, blown our socks off. So it's kind of been a competition and a striker true number 9 by committee between him and Tomas Among and Johansson. So we'll see who starts. That's kind of the major rotation is Dennis Kostashin, who's leading the team in goals so far this season in all competitions, is a shoe-in for that, I guess, false 9, 10 position. But then the true number 9 is something that Coach Miller has been cycling throughout the games, either through cup play or league play. So
Sure.
interested to see how a matchup between these two teams will work when also conditions are proper, as we did
Yeah,
have like a 2 hour lightning
yeah, we
rain
did.
delay.
Yeah,
The last game that AC Boise played in the rain was in Charlotte, and it was not fun for us. Be it was on 2 days rest, and we had to travel across the country, and just came out very flat. Most soccer players I've talked to would prefer to play in the rain versus 20 to 30 mile an hour wind, which we did have at our last home game. So just interested to see if conditions play a factor in this clash here in Boise.
yeah,
I guess looking more at the previous matchup, which is really the only data that we can truly see about this game, from my memory and just from looking at statistics from that match, it was pretty even. I think Boise coming out with a 1-0 victory, we were lucky for that, given the high chances that Sarasota had, where Joseph Endema did make some above average saves, I would say, to keep the ball out of the box. Looks like XG had it about, again, a point 0.7 for Sarasota, 1.2 for Boise. So a close match. But looking even through all of Sarasota's matches this season, it did seem like at least advanced analytics XG for each game had the matches so much closer than the final score said for Sarasota, where in the majority of the matches, either it was like a 1-1 draw when the final score is 4-1, or
yep.
at some points Sarasota was in expected goals supposed to win. So is that speaking to maybe defensive goalie problems, or more so a lack of finishing from the forward group, or a combination of both?
Yeah, so it may be a combination of both. I think that early on we had a struggle with finishing in the sense that we were not choosing the best option in attack. Like we'd force the issue basically, and we'd take shots that we didn't need to take. We've gotten better at that over the last few games, where now we're probing into the box more. We're taking shots in the box as opposed to 6 yards outside of the box. We're not, especially the last couple matches. We're passing it around. We're holding it up a little bit more to get some reinforcements in. So that's starting to go away. Now it's coming down to like a very true finishing issue where they're finding the shot, they're just not getting it on frame. Um, and like I said early on, especially the first maybe 6 matches, 7 matches, maybe even, it was a lot of they weren't making good choices in attack. So we moved on to that. Now, however, the goals against is a big thing for us. We lack urgency a lot in key moments in defense. Um, Set pieces have killed us a few times. It's not the it's not that first pass in. It's like the secondary ball. It's like the third ball where we lose composure after we've made that initial clearance or whatever. And now all of a sudden the opponent regroups and they get a shot and we weren't ready. Um, we're really easy to beat on the counter.
Mm.
Um, I think that I mean we do play up a lot, and so if you can beat us and not get offside, um, it's very easy to get past us and take advantage of our loss of composure. So I think really at the end of the day, it's a combination, but the last several games, I would say it's been defense, just defensive miscues,
Mm-hmm.
some laziness, some just lack of composure, lackadaisical, poor marking, things
Mm-hmm.
that I think are very easily fixed. Um, and for the most part, 85% of the game, we're doing it correctly. It's
Yeah.
like just key moments where we lose it. So I think that that's probably what we see in those advanced analytics is we're seeing this situation where yeah we haven't done the best in finishing, but we're losing matches mainly because we're getting on the back foot after having to play catch up because we've dropped the ball somewhere. Um, and honestly, against wait, let's not mix up these games. Against let's see, it was the last game we played. Why am I losing? um, it was um gosh, what
AV
is wrong
Alta?
with me? Yes, AV Alta. My goodness. Apologies to Anna Lavelli. Against AV Alta, we had a situation where questionable penalty led to that second goal. Um, there was a handball inside the box that we didn't get also. So there's those things to you never want to make excuses and blame it on the ref, but
Hmm.
it was a very soft penalty. I personally, is trying not to be as biased as possible. I personally think it was a soft penalty. I don't know that he even really had possession to consider it a penalty. So it's one of those things where it's just, sometimes the soccer gods don't choose you, you
Yeah,
know.
exactly.
And so yeah, I think that we're in a position where we're playing better. The analytics, the advanced analytics that you pointed out show that
Hmm.
it's those weird things that just happen that cause the game to go off the rails.
Yeah, and AV Alta is another great, I guess, example of that, where their record maybe isn't screaming that they are a um, top of the league team, but again, looking at
Mhm.
XG at the very least, they are far more competitive in all of their competitions than their record shows. Really interested to see what pans out on Saturday, or sorry, Wednesday here in Boise. I guess as for the club and more the fandom with Sarasota, as we mentioned earlier on, there's a lot of mouths and a lot of markets to feed in the Florida region. How has supporter groups, a fan overall fandom for home matches been so far this season?
I think I want to say we're averaging around 1,400 a match roughly, which I believe is up from when we were a couple hundred, few hundred from when we were in USL2. Um, I think that our weather sucks in Florida. As
Hmm.
much as as much as I love the Florida weather compared to what I grew up in the upper Midwest, um, when it gets into the football season, soccer season, it gets rainy, it gets stormy. It's pretty much every day there's a chance of rain. Pretty much every day there's a chance of rain sometime between 4 p.m. and 7 p.m. So it's
Hmm.
it's very difficult, I think, for soccer teams to manage the attendance because
Hmm.
there are a lot of people who are going to be like, I'm not going to do what we had to do with our first matchup. We're not going to sit in a car for 2 hours and wait for it to stop raining. Lightning is huge. We're like the lightning capital of the United States. Um, we can't be in the stadium when there's lightning because we don't have concourses. So it's that's a challenge right there. So I think overall it doesn't help that we started slowly,
Hmm.
but I think there's a good grassroots growth occurring. I see it. I'm part of the Helm, which is a supporters group. Um, we're seeing it more and more every match. We're seeing people gravitating to us. We're not technically a GA section, but there are open seats in our section. So people will just come over and sit next to us and hang out. And kids are gravitating to us because we're ridiculous and they
Yeah.
like making noise and all that. So their parents then come over and they find out, oh, they're pretty cool people. And so then it's growing. So I think that grassroots wise, there's um, it's going well. I have high hopes that we're going to continue. I wouldn't be shocked. I mean, especially if we can turn things around, I wouldn't be shocked if we're at 2,000 a match, by the end of the season.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's amazing to hear. It's always fun to see and hear different teams' perspective or so far attendance. Obviously, from a just number situation, Athletic Club Boise does have a giant attendance. I have nothing to do with that. The team has a little bit to do with that, but it's more the community and the overall lack of professional sports in Idaho that helps with
Yeah.
that. Since this is the only professional sport, we have Boise State football, but that's collegiate. That is pretty much the lifeblood of the city before this. I'm interested to see how come American football season, how attendance will shift at AC Boise matches as they're both usually on Saturday evenings.
Oh,
And
sure.
also the same hand as you mentioned, if AC Boise came out of the gate slow and weren't undefeated at home, or at least haven't lost at home, we've drawn that would attendance be shifting of, ooh, we just got blown out 4-0 at home against whoever. I don't think I want to show up, or whatever that would be.
Yep.
There's definitely some alternate universes that could be explored to show that the performance on the pitch dictates so much of who shows up for these matches. But it's great to hear that supporter groups are coming together. At the end of the day, I think I personally want all of the USL to be at a
Mhm.
level where we do have thousands and thousands of attendees at each games and don't have empty seats for whatever the capacity of the stadium is, be it 3,000 or 10,000. Having as many butts in the seats as many eyes seeing the product on the pitch, so that come promotion and relegation, we have more hype around this league as a whole to show the world, to show the MLS and America what product we've built in Sarasota or in New York or in for Madison, Wisconsin, or here in Boise. So, real talk, you're already paying for insurance. Question is, are you overpaying? KJO Insurance covers Idaho and the Pacific Northwest, and they'll shop around to get you the best coverage for less. As you can see on their website, they have plenty of options for coverage. So please DM at KJO Insurance on Instagram with keyword pitchside, or call 208 833 4800 and tell them Elias and Kyle sent you. Now back to today's episode. Always interesting to see that and
Yeah.
hear that. We have a supporter group. It's the River Guard. My co-host and I are a part of it. We don't have season tickets in the supporter section, as it is. We do have like a standing room only wall of about 600, 500 seats, something like that. They're now noisy, they're rowdy. It's a ton of fun over there. I sit on the main grandstand where it is tame and fun, but sometimes slip over there for the second half or whenever we're shooting into the south end zone just to be able to have a little bit of fun. So
Yeah, for sure.
I think besides what we've already talked about, I guess, is there anything you want to ask about Boise or the team itself and anything along those lines before we um, put a bow on this collaboration?
Yeah, I think I'd be really interested to hear how the front office, the organization marketed soccer because for me, I know I'm going to be really honest. I mean, even though I'm 45 years old, I know very little about Boise, Idaho.
Yeah.
I've never been west of Montana and I've never been north of Nevada. So it's it's one of those areas that I've heard about and I know some things about, and
Hmm.
that's it. And for us, we're in this metro area of just under 1 million people, but we're right next door to Tampa, St. Pete. And so we have, you mentioned it, you don't have any professional sports. We have literally the Rowdies 40 minutes away. And if you want MLS, Orlando's 2 hours away.
Hmm.
And then obviously there's the Buccaneers and the Rays. And so, how did the organization market, or did they even have to market? I mean, was it just embraced, like
It
just
it
naturally embraced?
it was kind of something that I guess the city of Boise has been teased a professional soccer team for probably 10 years now. I think it started back in 2016. There was a motion to build a soccer stadium downtown in a lot. My co-host Kyle, who's not here today, is a nerd and a city planner by job, so he knows
Hmm.
far more about it than I do. There's a huge Basque population here in Boise. It's I think the densest population of
Interesting.
Basque immigrants from the region of northern Spain.
Yeah.
So with that, I think in 2016, Athletic Club Bilbao came to Boise for or 2015, because every 5 years there's a massive Basque festival here in Boise. They came to Boise and played a game on the iconic Boise State blue football pitch against someone. I don't remember who it is. Whatever it is, it showed that similar to maybe a Savannah Bananas, they sold out American football stadium, about 40,000 seats to watch Athletic Club
Wow.
Bilbao play a friendly match here in Boise. So from there, those plans fell through. No stadium was built. And once this kind of came, there's whispers of a USL team coming to Boise. I heard it very quickly, jumped on the project, and put in my $25 deposit. As for the other, whatever, 6,000 people who bought in for it, it was I wouldn't say there was massive marketing from the club outwardly, and maybe I just missed all the marketing, but I think it was just word of mouth of, hey, there's a huge youth soccer movement. There's a bunch of families whose kids play soccer or they played soccer growing up and are wanting this opportunity and kind of fill the void of the summertime and spring and summertime before Boise State's playing football again in the fall and late summer. This lines up perfectly with that. The affordability of the tickets aren't the worst. I mean, at the end of the day, I would love the tickets to be cheaper, especially now that there's plenty of success from the team, that the resale market is getting a little outrageous at times for how much people are
Hmm.
trying to sell their
Okay.
single game tickets for, as globally, similar to the issues with the World Cup this summer, soccer is supposed to be this very welcoming and cheap game where we have friends or listeners of the podcast who live in England and they're saying it's cheaper to me for me to go watch a Premier League match than it is to come to Boise when I visit and get a ticket to Athletic Club Boise, who's a third tier U.S. soccer team.
Wow.
Speaks
Okay.
to speaks to. I mean, when I went and watched Leeds United when I was in England, it was $30 for a ticket. The game for a normal ticket for a Tuesday match. Be it, it's impossible to get those normally, so we had to get advanced tickets. But
Hmm.
even for $100 for Leeds, that's the most expensive ticket. You get a three-course meal, you get treated like a king, all you can drink beverages, and a super nice seat to the stadium. When currently, right now, $100 ticket for Athletic Club Boise gets you a nicer ticket than the average person, maybe field level, but none of the amenities that come with all those things
Oh, interesting.
for a
Okay.
team. So I guess to answer your question, I think it was more just the city wanted something to get behind,
Yeah.
and thankfully the club ownership group and all those involved, from Brad to everyone else in the greater, I guess, conglomerate ownership group, just painted it right. And they have experience with these projects of starting um, expansion sides. The success doesn't hurt that they're
Right.
fourth in the table, but they definitely had the right plan, and it's a market that all analytics from overall city growth. I want to say Boise is a top five fastest growing cities in America. Just with through COVID, there was a bunch of people moving from your Californias, your Texas, Washington, Oregon, surrounding states to Idaho, where cost of living is far cheaper, and it's really it was easier to get here. Uh, all the other things that come with living in Idaho are beautiful if you like mountain landscapes, very family friendly, so on and so forth. If you're okay with
Sure.
some snow, we don't have a bunch of rain, not much lightning, tornadoes, and the like. No natural disasters really happen here in Boise, besides maybe the occasional wildfire. So um, I think I don't want to not give credit to ownership, but I think if it was a completely different ownership group, I still think it would have been just as successful as long as
That's awesome.
they made them themselves. They let people see what they were buying into.
Yeah. So do you, again, this is me being ignorant. Do you guys have any concerns about once the season drags on in terms of weather, or does Boise stay relatively mild?
We get hot in the peak of summer. That is definitely something that I could see people not loving. So currently, one of the main grandstand where probably 80 or 90% of people sit is facing east. So the setting sun, you'll be in the shade the entire evening. So you'll just have to deal with ambient. I mean, hottest days of the summer, you're getting into the 110s, 105s on a really hot day, and that normally is peaking around that 5, 6 p.m. moment. So right before kickoff, we do
Okay.
have one grandstand that is facing west and is just getting cooked in the sun for at least probably the first half, if not coming later into longer nights. Doesn't sun doesn't set here till about 9 or 10 p.m. before the summer solstice. So there that section is
Okay.
definitely going to need some what's it sun protection,
Sunscreen. Yeah.
sunscreen included with their ticket price
Yeah.
to protect them in the family section. But we do cool off a lot in the winter, or sorry, in the evening. So 100 and then 60 or 70 and once the sun sets and it gets cooler. So I don't want you to think that I know nothing about Florida besides alligators and Disney World. So I think it's just West Coast, East Coast biased.
Right. Yeah.
I'm learning a lot because a lot of USL is East Coast biased,
It
with
is.
the
Yeah.
majority of the teams being east of the Mississippi and South Texas. So we need more teams west. I'm sure we talked about it in previous podcasts where it's just unfortunate a lot of major or mid-major markets on the West Coast either already have professional sports in Salt Lake City or Las Vegas, Portland, Seattle, and there's not many Boise's out there in the West Coast. I mean, there's Reno, who's getting a championship team soon, but just thinking of the other states, they either already have a USL club and it's in the championship, or they already have even MLS or other competing brands to make it probably not a successful adventure
Yeah.
or
Well,
endeavor
anyways,
to.
so what? Like maybe Billings? Would Billings be a good
Yeah,
market for
Montana, I guess.
soccer?
Yeah, Montana, Wyoming, Dakotas could be something. Um, but again, like that's not
Yeah.
is and nothing's going to be close to Boise
Yeah.
or West Coast. It's not like your Florida's where there's Tampa, Orlando, Miami, Jacksonville, a lot of major highly populated cities very close to each other, or Corpus Christi and Fort Lauderdale is coming soon. All those
Yeah.
highly populated spaces to have a 1 hour drive to an away match and not our
Sure.
closest away match being 8 hours to Spokane. So I could see a Montana, a Wyoming, but I just don't know if the cities themselves would embrace them. I think Boise is
Right.
just such an anomaly when it comes to its sports craziness, it being primarily a college town, and a lot of the college students stay after they've graduated. It's not a high turnover in, I go to Boise State, I get my degree, and I go back to wherever. That's how I was. I grew up in the Seattle area of Washington, came to Boise, fell in love with it. I'd rather it be 20 and sunny than 40 and rainy all winter. So that's a plus, and a lot of families who are just wanting to have a fun evening with their kids, or date night or whatever it is, where we can go to an AC Boise game and season tickets were cheap enough. And at this moment, I could probably sell my single game tickets for matches I can't get or can't go to and be profitable.
Right.
Um, we started this conversation about weather. Yeah, it gets
Yeah.
really hot here in
Yeah.
Boise in the
Well,
summer.
I mean, that's what's interesting because I think I had said that the lightning and the rain plays into a lot of maybe some attendance issues for Florida teams, but also the humidity
Mm,
because I mean, I lived in Western Colorado for a few years, and so it would be, hundreds in the day, and then it's so dry that it's not that bad, and then it cools off really fast at night. Here, it cools off. Like it'll be 95 in the day, and then it'll cool down to like 85 maybe.
Mhm.
But then the humidity goes up. So it's just like all of a sudden you go to a soccer match and you're like wringing your jersey
You're
out
wet. Yeah.
because it's so humid. So I mean, it's interesting. Conversations always tend to go to the weather, but in sports, it's actually a big deal because
Hmm.
people consider weather significantly when they do anything like that. That's why you know, Miami, um, they have a dome for baseball. That's why Tampa has a dome for baseball because you're not going to sit in Miami or Tampa in 90-degree heat watching a baseball game for
Hmm.
3 hours. I think that's why in the Midwest, where I'm from, we loved outdoor stadiums. We hated, like, we always made, growing up in Wisconsin, we always made fun of the Twins because they played in a dome. And it's like,
Hmm.
it's the Midwest. It's beautiful weather. Why would you want to be inside? Um, and so I think that weather is a big deal. Now, luckily, success success helps you
Yes.
avoid those
Oh,
issues.
of course. If it was
But
ninety
yeah,
percent humidity here in Boise in the summer, I would not be living here. Me and humidity are not two things that get along. We did a vacation to New Orleans a while back, and it was like, oh, I'm drinking soup and I'm just always wet. This is
yes,
so
yeah,
much fun to walk around and see the city, but I'm just needing to throw away all these clothes because they are just dripping with moisture, and there's
yeah,
no amount of deodorant or other cures that will help with that.
yeah,
Um, so I think that that's definitely something. At least I know Boise State. Whenever we play a team in the South, they have this indoor training dome where they can artificially humidify the space to practice in a
nice,
85-90% humidity dome and see how the body cramps and whatever all the
yep,
advanced sports medicine stuff that goes into
right,
hydration and electrolyte management
yeah,
for teams who are coming from super humid and come to dry, they're probably a pig in mud because it's like, oh, it's 80 and it's comfortable, it's nice and dry. My sweat's drying out as I'm running. This is awesome. We should play here more often.
right, yeah, yeah. The humidity also plays fat factor. Like myself, I drum in the helm, and the number of times that I lose grip of drumsticks, and I threw two on the weekend because it's like it just slips out. Uh, it's a funny conversation because it's the weather, but it does play factors into ownership groups and
For
how
sure.
they build their stadiums, you know, whether they think they can even be successful in a market. So it's definitely an interesting conversation.
Yeah, and I think
Yeah.
the schedule currently spring to fall for USL opens up more markets in the northern part of
Mhm.
the US. As I know, the MLS is transitioning to a more European schedule. Your Minnesotas, your Torontos, your other north teams who are dealing with snow in February are now going to be either not playing home games during that time or just it causes more conflicts and issues where, given the USL's current schedule, barring any changes, opens up for your Billings, your Dakotas, your um, other northern, usually considered very cold climates to throw their hat in the ring and show that, hey, it's actually beautiful here in the summer and fall and spring. Um, Now we get a bad rap for it being whatever 10 feet of snow and cold as hell.
Yep.
Just
For
another
sure.
another factor for uh, potential expansion. I know we have a
Yep.
few teams coming next season from Eugene, Oregon. There's Rodeo FC, and I think Fort Lauderdale is third coming to
Yeah.
USL One. So at least
Right.
one Pacific Northwest club. It'll be semi close for
Yeah.
Boise. But all that to be said, really looking forward to um, Saturday's clash with the Paradise. Get to
Wednesday's
see
clash.
Wednesday. Man,
Yeah.
my brain is just stuck on Saturday. I'm used to just Saturday games.
Yeah, and that was the thing. Like after I was saying, oh, the lineup might be very similar to what we saw in our first matchup. I'm like, wait, it's Wednesday, so there's probably going to be rotation. So it may not be. I might be completely talking
That's
out.
the hard
Maybe.
part. We're not the manager.
Yeah.
Given either Saturday before or Saturday after clash, there's always factors to be playing into who starts
Yep.
and who sits to manage minutes. So I think with that, I think both our
Yeah.
viewers hopefully have a greater idea of what to expect on Wednesday, where Athletic Club Boise faces Sarasota Paradise and the climates involved in both spaces, and hopefully learn a little bit about the West Coast and East Coast bias that is happening here. As again,
For sure.
I don't know much about east of the Mississippi besides the major cities and vice versa, where who knows if I asked 10 people from Florida to throw a dart at Boise, Idaho, where they would throw it at. Yeah.
I mean, I know where Idaho is, but
Yeah,
if you told me to point to where Boise was, I'd be like, I have no idea.
it's southwest in the state of Idaho. We're kind of close to Utah, Oregon, California.
Okay.
We're near a lot of things. So we're gonna wrap up this episode. Hopefully, you
Yeah.
all enjoyed hearing from both of us about the teams, where they're at, and an insight into what to expect for this upcoming clash.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. It was great.
Of course, always enjoy chatting. Wish you all the best in the remainder of this season. Do
too.
check out David on Instagram. What's your Instagram handle? Just to shout it out.
It is this underscore is underscore paradise underscore pod.
Perfect. Check them out if you're ever interested in what is going on with the Sarasota Paradise and all that USL 1 soccer. So with that, this is Elias and David signing off for today's episode, and we will catch you all in the next one.
Thanks.
That's all for today's episode. If you enjoy the show, make sure to like, comment, share with a friend, and make sure you're following the show wherever you listen. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube for all updates and future content to come. If you want to help support the pod and get access to exclusive content, early episodes, and bonus perks, head over and check out our Patreon. It truly helps us keep this thing growing. Thanks again for listening. Thanks for being part of the community, and we'll catch you in the next one.